There's a lot to work with, of course, and his team is built differently than all the other top quarterbacks, basically. Yeah. But when you start to look at if you're going to build a team around a guy, first you want the measurable things, obviously, the height, the size, arm strength, and all that. And he doesn't come close as far as height. He doesn't come close to Andrew Luck and some of the other guys as far as the size and the durability issues and things like that, later on in his career, he's going to have to prove that he can be durable. And he's been durable at this point. But the accuracy, the things that you need to be a fantastic quarterback, that size, that pocket presence, and the way that Andrew Luck goes about it without the great defense, the outstanding running game, the coach's philosophy that Pete Carroll's had. I'm not going to say he's better than Andrew Luck at this point in his career right now, although I love him. And he did an outstanding job yesterday driving his team down at the end of the ball game. You just have to understand wins and losses are the most important in this game, as we all know, and he has more of those than any of the young guys. He has a Super Bowl ring. None of the young guys have it. But it's because his team is built a little bit differently than some of the young quarterbacks and honestly, some of the older quarterbacks. Right. When you look at Peyton Manning right now, this is the first year he really had that kind of defense that the Seattle Seahawks have. You look at Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers nowhere near the kind of surrounding cast that they have up there in Seattle. Tom Brady, issues right now with the red zone, offensive line issues. So none of these issues that we talk about when we talk about quarterbacks, outside, he doesn't have those problems. Okay. He has a great running game. He has an outstanding coaching staff and defense, one of the best in the league. So that's why he's winning a lot of these games, but he's on his way to becoming a very, very good quarterback.
Stephen A.
I think it was a ridiculous question because of a ridiculous assertion by a cornerback in Denver that wanted to add credence to the moral victory thing that I brought up at the beginning of the show. He actually made my argument he just evaporated my whole argument, Skip, because it's that kind of nonsensical rhetoric that came out of his mouth that just disgusts me because it just ruined my argument. It's one thing for me to sit up there and talk about moral victories, but now he ruined my argument by really adopting it himself. Oh, look who we went against. Look what we almost did. Hey, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to leave that to people like me. I can't believe Chris Harris said that. Andrew Luck. Russell Wilson is not better than Andrew Luck. Russell Wilson is incredibly gifted. He's incredibly poised. I'm very impressed with him. He gets better by the week. There is no question. He's a Super Bowl champion, etc. But last time I checked, Andrew Luck had Amar Bradshaw and Trent Richardson back there. They didn't have beast mode Marshawn Lynch.
That's right.
Last time I checked, Seattle had an offensive line. Indianapolis doesn't have much of one. Last time I checked, Russell Wilson had that elite defense, covering him when he wasn't so great, when he wasn't so accurate, when the offense didn't seem so prolific like they looked in the Super Bowl. But he had that defense, and he had beast mode covering him, one on defense and one in the backfield, okay? Andrew Luck hasn't had that. Andrew Luck hasn't had that defense. Andrew Luck hasn't had that running game. Andrew Luck hasn't had that offensive line. Plus, he was succeeding Peyton Manning and still 2 consecutive 11-5 seasons with the franchise placed on his back. Russell Wilson is gifted, not taking anything away from him. But he is no Andrew Luck. Put him on Indy and watch what happens. And put Andrew Luck on Seattle.
And I think you are being completely unfair to Chris Harris. I think Chris Harris spoke from his heart. I think because they had just stood out there for 13 straight plays while this little man picked them to pieces, he was saying, hey, what's the big deal about Andrew Luck? And I keep asking the same question on this show because all I know is that in last year's playoffs, while one quarterback was actually leading a team to the Super Bowl, and I know he's got beast mode in the defense, the other quarterback was throwing 7 interceptions in 2 games. He was throwing his team with 3 interceptions into a very deep hole that he helped throw them back out of against Kansas City at home. And then he went up to Foxborough and threw 4 more interceptions.
Yeah.
Well, Russell Wilson wasn't doing that. and I got to tell you, I'm eating a little crow on this one because I'm usually pretty good at who can play coming out of college. And I watched Russell Wilson quite a bit at North Carolina State, and I watched him a whole lot at Wisconsin. I didn't see this. I didn't see it. He's 5'11", barely. And I thought, he's just going to have a hard time. I underrated his acceleration out of the pocket. He just runs away from people out of the pocket. He makes everybody else look like they're in slow motion. And I underrated his self-preservation radar. It's extreme. He knows when to get down. I don't see him get tagged.
That's awesome, but you know what else you underrated? The coaching philosophy of Pete Carroll. And I think that has a huge deal. And again, the relationship between Pete Carroll and these guys that he's been able to recruit and be in their home. So he knows them. He knows kind of how they tick. And I think that the Seattle Seahawks have an outstanding opportunity at this point because they're not paying the quarterback a big deal to keep that defense really tight and understand that Marshawn Lynch is one of the most competitive individuals on the earth. And that game, that team is focused on the running game and defense. And they have a fine quarterback to be able to kind of handle it all. But once those pieces, because he's going to get paid pretty soon.
Yeah.
And once those pieces start to kind of diminish, we'll see and find out what kind of quarterback he really is and can he handle being the best player maybe on that team.